Welcome, Nate, to Metallarium Pages. It's a great pleasure to talk with you about Trond, this new album that who sat upon him was dead. So, and more things related with in the metal in general, etc. So, let's start with asking how are you doing today? How is the band during the last couple 3 years? Because your album Pestilent Dawn was released 3 years ago. Oh, four
Oh,
years ago.
we're doing good, man. Yeah, Pestilent Dawn came out in what was it, 20? Actually, no, it might have been 4 years ago now.
Mhm.
I think it came out in 21.
Right.
Uh, since then, we've been trying to hit the ground running. We've been touring a lot more as of 23 and, been gearing up for this new album. We've had it kind of stored away for like the last year and a half. It's actually been recorded since October of 23, but we didn't
Mhm.
get to releasing it until this year. So we're excited about that.
Amazing, amazing. So, now you mentioned a few seconds ago that this new album was completely recorded in 2023. So, 2 years later for the last album. So, and for this, when did you decide to start writing songs for this new album? Because or all songs are new, or did you rescue any composition that were out for the previous one?
Well, usually the songs just kind of come and go freely from practice to practice. If me and the drummer are, just if we're at the space by ourselves, me and the drummer will just sit down. I'll just start, messing with a riff. And then if a song comes out of it, a song comes out of it. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's just kind of, we're pretty old school when we write our music.
Mhm.
It's all about chemistry, and if it clicks, it clicks, and then boom, we'll write a song in 5 minutes. If not, it'll take 5 to 6 months before we get a song finished. We're pretty perfectionists when it comes to our composition and how we write our music.
Okay, nice, nice.
Yep.
So other detail that captured my attention when I've been hearing this Pistol and Down and this new album. So I saw that a lot of people say that you play like something melodic black death metal. But when I hear your music, you don't have any kind of related things with the melodic. Because usually melodic black metal is like Dissection, like Winterland, or
Yeah, yeah.
like great old bands from the Swedish era of the ends of the 90s. So with your music is more direct, it's more brutal. So for me, you are playing like more black death metal, a strong black death metal. But the other people say that you play some melodic. So I don't know why. I've been hearing these two albums, whole this like this last week. So I don't know
hmm
why. So and you are the conceiver of this new album or the band in general. So how do you label the band? Do you consider that the band is melodic black death metal, or you have influence for that?
So originally we did label ourselves as a melodic black and death metal band
Mhm.
because um I'm a very big advocate for melody and metal. I love guitar harmony, all that kind of stuff. But the our first EP, Altar of the Dying, had a lot of melody in it, and we kind of drew influence from Belphegor, which Belphegor has a lot of melodic interludes in their music, and a lot of guitar harmony. So they were a big influence early on for us, and some Dark Funeral can get a little melody in there too. But when we shifted from Altar to Dying to Pestilent Dawn, we kind of pulled off the melody a little bit. There's still some that goes on. I mean, there's in our music you can still hear guitar harmonies because that's just something of me that's never going to go away when I write my music. I'm because I grew up liking melodic death metal, like At the Gates, Carcass, that kind of stuff. So, and Dissection as well, they're one of my favorite bands. So that's never going to go away. I still throw hints of it in there. Even the latest single the first single we released from the new record, the middle section of it has like a guitar, like At the Gatesy, like trem riff that has melody in it. So, but most of the newer stuff's way more brutal death metal, more in that realm of getting heavier and trying to stray away from being more melodic.
Okay, okay. So other than that, now, as you can see, the world are we are living like in a world that just with a lack of attention. So the span attention now is now because now the people are releasing just more singles, but you are still releasing albums in an era that a lot of people wants to just hear listening singles, especially for
Yeah.
the digital platforms. Just the people wants to listen these singles in the digital platforms and not albums anymore. So why did you decide to come or release still releasing two albums in an era that just people just wants to hear just singles?
Well, I think I mean I agree with the attention span part. It's, you don't want to. I think the era of bands releasing 12, 13, 14, 15 song tracks, albums, that's just done now. You can't do that anymore. I remember back in the early 2000s you'd get bands that would have like 15 song albums, but like no one would listen past song 5, you know what I mean? And so this new album that we released, I was like, okay, what's the best way for us to release a full length, make it short, but still make it, with the time of a full length, but not have 10, 12, 13 songs on it to where people lose interest. So this new one we have 8 songs on it. So it's it's quick, it's fast, it's you don't lose the attention. It's like a 30-minute, just steamroll, So we figured that's the best way to do it in a era of very short attention spans.
Okay. Okay. Well, one thing that you said about the duration of your album is the exact time for you to reproduce an album. And the curious thing about this, the first, your for Pestilent Down and this new, the whole sat upon him was that is that the both albums has a duration of 30 minutes. So that's incredible because it's not sometimes when you create a song, you don't think about this album need to sound or need to have just 30 minutes. But in both albums, the time is 30 minutes. So is this decision was a conscious decision or it was something that happened at the moment when you composed the album? Because when I spoke, I remember when I spoke with Nocturno Culto from Darkthrone, he told me that
Yeah.
he told me that it's possible. Well, for them, is just a great album is 30 minutes or 4 minutes of duration. If you have more than that, there is not a good album.
I can agree with that. Like some of my favorite records are like are 30 minutes or less. You have Rain and Blood by Slayer, which is like I think I don't even think it reaches 30 minutes. I think it's like 27 or something like that. Like so it's there, you know what I mean? But like we um we do time our songs when we write them just to
Mhm,
make sure that we're not writing super short songs.
mhm,
We also don't want our songs to really exceed 5 minutes because unless that's the style of music that you're playing, if you're like an Opeth or if you're Sleep or something like that where your songs go 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, et cetera, et cetera, like that's fine for that style of music. But obviously, we're a brutal, black and brutal death metal band. We don't need 10-minute long songs. So uh the 30-minute thing for both records was kind of a happy accident. We didn't really mean it to happen, but um it was just I'm a firm believer of if your album really exceeds 30 minutes, unless you're that, doom metal, progressive metal that they have all the long songs, you're probably going to lose interest of the listener. So
mhm. Oh, okay. Okay, well now as I said, you for me you are playing more like the black death metal band. So and one thing that you said is that you are leaning down like the influence with the Belfogor in some aspect with this new album or with the previous one also. But a curious thing that for me happened is for me Belfogor is not stronger enough if we compare the black death metal like Angel Corpse from your side from US because Angel
yes,
Corpse
yes.
has more stronger, more savage. I don't know how do you describe Angel Corpse. So for you, and for when this topic, usually when I hear a band like play black metal or black death metal in US, is more aggressive, is more stronger than the black death metal from Europe. Like you have Necrophobic, you have Belfegor, but if you
Mm-hmm.
compare if you compare the black death metal for both sides, is very different. Someone is more aggressive, and some the other ones, like you said, it's like a little melodic knock. So for you, as you are from US, why do you decide to lean down for the influence from the European scene, like the more melodic from this kind of topic?
Well, so I originally that I mean this is a little bit of a backstory. You know, I originally when I first got into metal and music and all that stuff, I grew up on the early metalcore from the U.S. So there was bands like As I Lay Dying and Killswitch Engage that had a lot of melodic interludes, and they pulled influence from At the Gates. So and then I don't know if you're familiar with the band called Vehemence
Okay,
from
okay.
yeah they're from Arizona.
Hmm.
uh they were another band that was I heard the Help the World to See in 2004 and the song By Your Bedside and Kill for God, that kind of stuff, like that melodic interlude, early Black Dahlia Murder, because they're from an hour away from us. Black Dahlia Murder's from Detroit. So, they were a huge influence early on from my melodic listening, and then I was like got into heavier and more aggressive stuff when I got older. But yeah, that's where my melodic influence came from, and then I was introduced to Belphegor, Dissection, and everything like that, 15, 20 plus years ago, however long ago it was. So that's been my main writing influence. But lately, more brutal death metal stuff come into the writing, a lot of Deeds of Flesh or Gorgasm, Putridity, Inverosity, those kind of bands. Suffocation is my favorite death metal band of all time. So, we try to lean into that a little bit more too.
Okay, okay, okay. Now returning to the for this new album, the who had spawned with upon him was that one thing that captured my attention on another for this one is the cover art. So how do you relate the cover art? Because in when I try to relate the name of the album, try to relate the lyrics, well, try to relate the name of the songs with obviously with the music, it's well something is very related or merged with this with the name, but the cover art has a little abstract as your first album has an abstract relations. So how do you relate, and what is the meaning for you of the cover art, everything about this?
So when we started the band, the cover art and everything, our buddy Brian Sheehan from Detroit does all of our artwork for all of our shirts, all of our albums, and he has like a very abstract, you know, vision when he does his art. And it's very dark, it's very, it's got like a very dark feeling to it. And because when I write my lyrics are usually about chaos, darkness, evil, that kind, whatever, that kind of stuff. So I wanted my lyrics and the darkness of our music to be correlated with the artwork of our album. And I feel like Brian was, he has the perfect vision for that. And that's why the last three releases we've had with him, we just keep going back to him. I'm like, the guy just does perfect artwork for what we're trying to do. And we just go back to him time and time and time again. Any new shirt design we do, we're like, Brian, can you give us something? He did our first music video for Beyond Malice and everything like that. So he just has the perfect vision for my lyrical content and the music that we create.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Now talking about a little more about the promotion of this new album. What kind of plans do you have for this album? What kind of perhaps you will embark on tours, you prepare more videos, or perhaps you already working on a third album? Because as you said, this album was composed in 2023, and we're 2 years ahead from this for the album was ready. So perhaps you were working on new albums. Who knows? What kind of plans for you have for the in general for Throne and this new album?
So right now we are actually planning for a release tour. We're starting. It's gonna be shorter one's about 11, 12 days, but it's gonna start in March 13th through the 24th, and that's gonna be our album release tour, because the album's gonna go live digital, and I think it's gonna be available for purchase and everyone on the 21st, so towards the tail end of the tour. And So that's going to be our pretty much our like that's going to be the how we're gonna promote it, because we're going to do East Coast with for the states, and then we're going to do our actual full album release show April 19th in our at our home venue in here in Michigan. So that's as far as a new album's concerned. We have started writing some new stuff. Since we haven't really gotten to play any of the new material off the newer record, we haven't really like jumped into like
Mhm.
fully trying to compose a new record at the moment because we have been this new stuff so new. I think we've only played one or two songs off the new album, maybe the last 6, 7 months. So I mean, this new material is very, uncharted territory for most of our, fans or anyone that hasn't heard us. So we haven't really jumped into writing anything new just yet. We probably will in the next 5, 6 months, though.
Okay, 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 okay. Now you are working for the second time with Redefining Darkness Records, a great label from US.
Oh yeah.
Now, so how was your relationship with this label? Because you started the band in 2014 and you released your first album and this new album with Thomas. So how was your in this how was the treatment with this label? How is going with this label? And did you receive some offers for different labels, for example?
So the story how we the band even got on Redefining Darkness is Thomas actually released my other band that I'm in.
Mhm.
I'm also in Jesus Wept, and our first album was released through Redefining Darkness, and I thought to myself, I'm like, you know what? Maybe Thomas will release this band too, So obviously I prefaced, hey, also in Jesus Wept, and I sent it to him, and he was like, this is awesome. Let's do something. And so he did Pestilent Dawn for us. It did great, and then we were able to get vinyl for it. And we did shop the new album around a little bit. No one bid on it, unfortunately. So we released it again through Thomas. Thomas, does a great job when he does his promotion. He is an awesome, label owner. He makes sure that, everything gets done when it needs to get done. When you're in the plan for it, because you have to schedule out so far in advance because he's got so many bands and he wants to get released, and he wants to make sure that everyone's got their promotional time for their PR and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes, like I said, when we approached him about the new album, I approached him in like October or September of 23, and I was like, hey, we're going to get this done. He's like, well, I'm not going to be able to get you out until maybe the end of 24. And then I ended up getting pushed to 25, but like it ended up being perfect for us because now we were able to, get a full PR campaign out of it. So, Tommy always does right by us. So we love working with him. So, but as far as like other labels, nothing's happened yet, but we're optimistic and we're hoping something can happen the next year or so, and maybe it's a bigger step for us to go forward and
Okay.
do bigger things.
Okay, okay. Well, we spoke about the album. We spoke about the releases, the difference of in the black death metal from US and Europe, and now we are going a little far away from the album and the band. As you can see now, there is a thousand of that. No, no, there is no thousand. There is like 60 or 50 releases per weekend. Each weekend is a very complicated weekend for all of the bangers around the world because you have more
Oh
than
yeah.
50 or 60 releases. It's impossible to catch up everything this all the releases for this one. But one thing that captured my attention is not the amount of the releases. It's now is the standardization in all productions. Now it's very easy to record an album or record a song. It's not like the 80s or 90s when there's more will has a difficulties to record an album or a song. So, but with this one, now there's not bad records with this standardization of the sound. As you can see, all bands sounds great, all musicians plays perfect, and in studio all is possible now. So they can
Oh
play
yeah.
they can play technically amazing. So I don't know, they very enthusiastic with the instruments. So and for this one, what's your opinion about now the standardization of the sound into the music industry, especially in the metal industry? Because now all bands, especially string metal, are like all bands playing perfect, no bad records, no bad musicians.
It's um Well, the studio and everything that, just studio technology has just come so far from the 80s and 90s. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, you can get any guitar sound you want now. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you don't even have to have real amps anymore when you go in the studio. I mean, if you wanted to, you could literally just come in with a guitar and you could have fake drums, you could have fake guitar tone, you could have fake everything, and it will sound, just like it was someone that did it real. So and with metronomes and drum quantizing and all this stuff that they do in there now, you can pretty much do whatever you want and everything can sound flawless and perfect. Uh, but when it comes to being, in brutal death metal and extreme metal, you almost don't want that. I don't really care for the albums that have that robotic feel to them. I like my death metal and my, to have a little bit of humanity to it, where you can hear the errors, you can hear in the Tomb of the Mutilated Cannibal Corpse. If you listen to Hammer Smash Face, you can tell that the drums kind of slow down and speed up, and that's the kind of stuff that I think is pretty cool. Obviously, with our drummer, we can't really do that because we had to play at a certain speed and consistency, so he has to play to a metronome. But the first record we did not play to a metronome. So you could feel it was a little bit more human. The new albums now are, we're trying to get a little faster, we're trying to get a little heavier, so we have to get into the metronome, we have to get into quantizing a little bit and line everything up to where it sounds fast and brutal and heavy. So that's it. It's just, you can basically do whatever the hell you want in the studio now. So that's, I don't really have an opinion on it because, like I said, I prefer the more human side of it, as to where some people would prefer a more clean, crisp, perfection side to recording and what an album would sound like.
Okay, okay. So other detail that you mentioned, and for me is very important because in the when one of the what we're running a podcast here in Metallarium, so, and we spoke
Okay.
about now the artificial intelligence, but now the people just get mad for this topic, that for the things. So they think that the artificial intelligence will take jobs for other people, especially for the artists, but just the people are just hearing the music did by the artificial intelligence or seeing the artworks created by this new technology. Or, well, in general, it's a new software for me. It's not artificial intelligence. So, but in this situation, you said one thing very important. Now, a lot of bands are not playing with amps in live presentation, just playing with plugins or direct to the console, or just
Yeah.
without effects, without amps. But with this kind of thing, there is a worry thing to do this with, because as you can see, there's in the 80s or the 90s when a band play, for you, for example, you are four or five people, and you have three or four people more to help you a live presentation with the amps, with the set it up, and etc. etc. Now with this old technology that is now the software, now you just need one person, no more four people, no more five people to
Oh
ready
yeah.
to play. So that is one thing that the people didn't the people don't see, because just the people get mad for the artificial intelligence is involved with the music or the artwork, but the artificial intelligence is involved now with the plugins, where they set it up in everything when you play live. So it's a very different world. So now what's your opinion about this, well, the secretly artificial intelligence now in the live presentations?
So I'm just like everyone else when it comes to it. I think if you have to resort to AI for your artwork or your music or whatever, it shows you have a lack of creativity, and I think it's a shortcut. I think it's you're cutting corners. We I us and Throne, there will never be any situation or any scenario where we will ever consider using AI for any of our stuff. Like I said, we always contact Brian for our artwork. every time without fail. And when we go to the studio, we go down to Chicago. We use all amps. We use I'm literally in the drum room with my drummer doing scratch tracks with him, staring him right in the face as he's playing every single drum note. And the sound engineer down there, we're trying amps, we're trying different heads. Nothing we do is artificial for any of our releases. The only thing that would be technically like techie would be the lining up the drum tracks to make sure there's no like mishits or things like that. But other than that, it's all you know straightforward. So I know there was the big thing about pestilence with the AI stuff, and that was a huge ordeal about what was a couple weeks ago, where the vocalist from Pestilence came on and said, "Hey, whatever AI, I can do whatever I want," and we're all just looking at him going, "Okay, guy." like, so but yeah, no, we're none of us are a fan of it. We don't. I mean, anyone that says, "Oh, I had an AI help me write my music," and I just kind of go, ugh, really? That okay? That's where I'm at with it.
Okay. Okay. And now one of the last questions for this interview. As you can see now, playing extreme music is not it's not like the 80s or 90s, because the 80s or 90s has a different, like, you as you can see now, you are in a few bands for me that you sound with your own style. But there is
Yeah.
a lot of bands sounds like a lot of bands from the 80s or 90s. So, in this topic, what's your opinion about this now overwhelming releases per weekend? We have, as I said, we have 50, 60 per releases. And for you, what is the main, what is special thing that this Throne has with this new album compared with this, I don't know, with 60 releases per weekend?
Well, I feel we're some people may not agree with me with this, but I think we're doing, at least for this new record, I think we're hitting on a different niche that most bands aren't doing. You've got your that old school death metal revival that came about 10 years ago, with all the bands coming out of the woodwork. You had Tomb Mold, you had Blood Incantation, you had all these bands that kind of just shot up about 11 years ago, and that OSDM revival. And we kind of wanted to stray away from that. So we feel that we're bringing a new, I guess not a new sound, but like a sound that's not being thoroughly explored by most up and coming bands, I would say. Uh, because we're trying to take two different styles and slightly mash them together. Because brutal death metal is usually, it's just brutal death metal. No one's trying to add like a blackened element to brutal death metal. It's either you got Gorgasm, you have Deeds of Flesh, but you don't have a Gorgasm Deeds of Flesh band that has like hints of like Dark Funeral or hints of Angel Corpse or hints of this or hints of that in it. So we're trying to take that brutal death metal sound and trying to slightly twist it to where it's something that's fresh and unique, to me at least. There may have been some bands that exist that have that sound, but to me, I haven't heard them yet. So that's kind of where we're at with it. With all the releases, sometimes you get into this droll of all these bands are starting to sound the same. Everyone's starting to do the same thing, and I think we're doing something a little different, not completely different, because just about every sound of metal has been created. So you're not going to reinvent the wheel too often, but every once in a while you can come up with something that's slightly fresh and unique to where people go, "Oh, this is a breath of fresh air." This doesn't sound like, you know, Gate Creeper every other record, or it doesn't sound, you know what I mean? So,
Mhm.
yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Okay, 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 okay. Well, Nate, we the sad moment arrived of this interview. I hope you enjoy this one like me. This new album is a
Absolutely.
great one. It's a tremendous one. That's one I really like it. So congratulations on this novel, from
Thank
this
you.
new album, and perhaps do you want to add something to your Latin American fans and obviously Metallica followers?
hopefully we can come down and tour and play for you guys down there. We actually got the chance to play with Masacre not too long ago, and they were like, and I feel like when it comes to Latin America, South America and all that kind of stuff, if it's fast, if it's brutal, if it's they're gonna love it regardless. So like, and they were like, yes, you could. The vocalist told us, he's like, your voice is brutal, you know. Sorry for my horrible accent on it, but it was awesome to hear that from a legendary band like Masacre. And so hopefully we can come down there and play for you guys sometime. I think it'd be awesome. I think we would do really well in that market.